The rain fell heavy over Seattle that Tuesday evening, washing the streets clean while leaving everything feeling gray and cold. Nathan Pierce sat alone in Rosewood Bistro, a small restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop on Cedar Avenue. The place was nothing like the five-star establishments he usually frequented. Checkered tablecloths covered wooden tables, mismatched chairs circled each one, and the walls displayed local artwork that nobody ever bought. He checked his phone for the 8th time. The dating app showed his message had been read an hour ago. No response. His date was supposed to arrive at 7. It was now 8:15. Nathan had chosen this place deliberately, far from downtown, far from the glass towers where everyone knew his face. Here, he was just another man in a worn leather jacket, hoping someone would show up. He had created a simple profile under the name Nate Rivers. No company mentions, no wealth indicators, just a regular person looking for something real. The owner, an elderly woman with kind eyes, refilled his water glass without asking. She had done this 3 times already, each time offering a sympathetic smile that made him feel both comforted and pathetic. Outside, the neon sign flickered against the wet pavement, casting pink and blue shadows across the sidewalk. A few customers sat scattered throughout the restaurant, a young couple sharing pasta at the corner table, an old man reading a newspaper with his coffee, a construction worker scrolling through his phone while eating soup. Nathan belonged nowhere among them, yet he sat there anyway, trying to convince himself that this time would be different, that someone would see him, not his bank account or his influence, just him. His company, TechVision Industries, had been featured in every major business magazine. His innovations had changed how people communicated across continents, but sitting in this quiet restaurant, watching the rain streak down the windows, none of that mattered. Success had built him an empire. It had also built walls so high that nobody could climb them anymore. He placed a $20 bill under his water glass and reached for his jacket. Time to stop pretending. The girl in the yellow raincoat. The door swung open with a burst of wind and rain. A small figure rushed inside, bringing with her the smell of wet asphalt and autumn air. The girl wore a bright yellow raincoat 3 sizes. Too big. The sleeves rolled up to reveal tiny hands clutching a soggy teddy bear. Her dark hair hung in wet tangles around her face, and her sneakers squeaked loudly against the tile floor. She looked around the restaurant with determined eyes, then spotted Nathan immediately. Without hesitation, she marched straight to his table, her footsteps leaving small puddles behind her. Nathan froze, his hand still on his jacket. The girl stopped in front of him, slightly out of breath. She pushed her hair back from her face and looked up at him with serious brown eyes that seemed too wise for someone so young. "My mama said I should tell you she will be here soon," the girl announced. "She is helping someone outside who dropped all their groceries in the rain. She told me to come inside and find you so you would not leave." Nathan stared at her, completely confused. "I think you have the wrong person. I am waiting for someone, but not your mother." The girl shook her head firmly. "You are Nate, right? The one who sits by the window?" He felt something shift in his chest. "How did you know that?" "Mama saw you through the window when we walked past last week. She said you looked like you were waiting for the whole world to notice you, but nobody did. She said that made you look lonely, so when she saw you again tonight, she wanted to come say hello, but then the grocery lady fell." Nathan could not find words. This small person, dripping, rain onto the floor and holding a teddy bear like a shield, had just described his entire existence in one innocent sentence. The girl climbed onto the seat across from him without being invited, setting her bear carefully on the table. She unzipped her raincoat to reveal a purple sweater with a glittery unicorn on it. "I am Ruby," she said proudly. "I am 6 years old. What is your name?" "Your real name, not your pretend one." Nathan felt his carefully constructed walls crack just slightly. "Nathan, but most people call me Nate. Which one do you like better?" Nobody had ever asked him that. I am not sure anymore. Ruby nodded as if this made perfect sense. Sometimes I forget which things I like, too. Mama says that happens when you stop paying attention to yourself. The owner approached their table, looking uncertain. Nathan gave her a reassuring nod. She is waiting for her mother. Can we get some hot chocolate for her? Ruby's face lit up. With marshmallows? As many as you want. The girl grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. You are nice. Mama said you looked nice, but I wanted to check first. Sometimes grown-ups look nice, but they are actually grumpy inside. What is your verdict? Ruby studied him carefully, tilting her head like a small judge. You are sad nice. That is different from happy nice. But it still counts. Before Nathan could respond, the door opened again. A woman rushed inside, her coat soaked through, her long dark hair plastered against her face. She carried reusable grocery bags in both hands and looked completely exhausted. The artist who saw everything. Victoria Chen spotted her daughter immediately, and relief flooded her features. Then she saw Ruby sitting across from a stranger, and her expression shifted to horror. Ruby Grace Chen, I told you to wait by the door. She hurried to the table, dropping the grocery bags on an empty chair. I am so sorry, sir. She has no sense of boundaries when it comes to lonely people. Mama, this is Nate. The one you said looked lonely. I told him you were coming. Victoria's cheeks flushed deep red. She looked at Nathan properly for the first time, and he watched recognition flicker across her face. Not recognition of who he really was, but of the man she had observed through the window. I apologize, Victoria said quietly. Ruby has this habit of trying to fix everyone's problems. We will get out of your way. Please do not go, Nathan heard himself say. Your daughter promised we would share hot chocolate. Ruby bounced in her seat. With lots of marshmallows. Victoria hesitated, torn between embarrassment and something else. Nathan could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight of carrying too much alone for too long. He recognized it because he carried something similar, just wrapped in expensive suits instead of paint-stained jeans. I really should not impose, she began. You are not imposing. I was about to leave because I was stood up. Your daughter saved me from a very lonely walk home in the rain, Ruby beamed. See, Mama? I helped. Victoria looked at her daughter, then at Nathan, then at the owner who was already bringing 2 mugs of hot chocolate to the table. She let out a long breath and slowly sat down beside Ruby. Just for a few minutes, she said. Then we really need to go home. But Nathan could see in her eyes that she needed this small moment of rest as much as he needed the company. They were 2 people drowning in different oceans, and somehow this little girl had thrown them both a lifeline without even knowing it. The rain continued outside, but inside Rosewood Bistro, something warmer than hot chocolate began to grow. Something neither of them had expected to find on an ordinary Tuesday evening, something that would change everything. 3 days passed before Nathan found himself walking back to Rosewood Bistro. He told himself it was because the food was decent and the place was quiet. He told himself it had nothing to do with a 6-year-old girl who spoke truth like it was. The simplest thing in the world. Or her mother, whose tired smile had stayed in his thoughts longer than it should have. The evening air was crisp and cool, the kind that made Seattle feel alive with possibility. Street lamps flickered on as dusk settled over the neighborhood, casting warm pools of light along the sidewalk. Nathan had left his driver at home again, choosing to walk the 20 blocks from his penthouse. His security team hated when he did this, but he needed the space to think, to breathe, to remember what it felt like to be just another person moving through the city. When he pushed open the door to the bistro, the familiar chime announced his arrival. The owner looked up from behind the counter and smiled with recognition. That simple gesture touched something in Nathan's chest. When was the last time someone had smiled at him without wanting something in return? He chose the same table by the window, though he was not entirely sure what he was hoping for. The restaurant was busier tonight. Families occupied several tables, their conversations creating a comfortable hum that filled the space. Nathan ordered coffee and sat watching. The street outside, where people hurried past with their evening routines, each carrying their own invisible burdens. 20 minutes passed. He sipped his coffee slowly, letting the warmth spread through him. A part of him felt foolish for coming back. What did he expect? That Victoria would happen to be here at the exact same time, that Ruby would come running over with her infectious enthusiasm and make him feel less alone again? He was about to signal for the check when he heard it. That unmistakable voice, bright and clear as a bell. "Mama, look! It is Nate! I told you he would come back!" Nathan turned to see Ruby pulling her mother through the door, her small hand gripping Victoria's with determination. The girl wore denim overalls over a red-striped shirt, her hair pulled into two lopsided ponytails that suggested she had styled them herself. Victoria looked startled, her eyes meeting his across the restaurant. She carried a large portfolio case under one arm and seemed like she was trying to decide whether to acknowledge him or pretend they had not seen each other. Ruby made the decision for her, dragging her mother straight to his table. "The colors of truth. I knew you would be here," Ruby announced, climbing onto the chair across from him as if they had planned this meeting all along. "I told Mama that sad, nice people always come back to places where they felt less sad." "Ruby," Victoria said softly, her voice carrying both affection and exasperation. "We talked about this. You cannot just assume people want company." Nathan found himself smiling. Actually, I was hoping for exactly this. The honesty in his words seemed to surprise Victoria. She stood there, still holding her portfolio, looking like she was calculating whether it was wise to stay or polite to leave. "Please," Nathan said, gesturing to the empty chairs. "I ordered too much coffee and could use the conversation." Victoria hesitated for one more moment, then slowly set down her portfolio and took the seat beside her daughter. Up close, Nathan could see paint stains on her fingers, small specks of blue and yellow that no amount of washing had completely removed. She wore a simple green sweater and jeans, and there was something graceful about the way she moved, like someone who had learned to carry weight without letting it break her. "You really do not have to entertain us," Victoria said. "Ruby just gets excited when she recognizes people. She thinks everyone she meets is automatically her friend." "That sounds like a wonderful way to live," Nathan replied. Ruby nodded enthusiastically. "It is. I have 17 friends now, 18 if you count Mr. Henderson, but Mama says he is just our landlord, not a friend. But I think he is both." Victoria smiled despite herself. "Ruby has a very generous definition of friendship." "What is yours?" Nathan asked, genuinely curious. The question seemed to catch Victoria off guard. She thought for a moment, absently, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Someone who shows up, not just when it is convenient, but when it matters. Someone who sees you, really sees you, and stays anyway." The weight of her words hung in the air between them. Nathan understood that she was speaking from experience, from disappointments that had taught her to measure friendship in presence rather than promises. The owner appeared at their table, and Ruby immediately ordered pancakes with extra syrup. Victoria tried to protest, but Nathan waved it off, ordering dinner for all three of them before she could argue. "You do not have to do that," Victoria said quietly. "I know. I want to." Something shifted in her expression, a softening around her eyes. "Thank you." Stories painted in shadows, as they waited for the food, Ruby entertained them with a detailed account of her day at school, complete with dramatic reenactments of playground politics that made both adults laugh. She had a gift for storytelling. turning mundane moments into grand adventures. Nathan found himself genuinely engaged, asking questions and listening to answers with an attention he rarely gave to billion-dollar business deals. Victoria watched the interaction with a mixture of surprise and something that looked like relief. Nathan caught her looking at him once, and their eyes met for a brief moment before she glanced away, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. When the food arrived, Ruby attacked her pancakes with enthusiasm while Victoria picked at her salad, eating, slowly as if she was not quite used to someone else paying for her meal. "What is in the portfolio?" Nathan asked, nodding toward the large case leaning against the wall. Victoria's hand moved unconsciously toward it, protective. "Just some paintings. I had a meeting with a gallery owner today." "Mama makes the most beautiful pictures," Ruby said, through a mouthful of pancake. "She paints feelings." Nathan smiled at the description. "Feelings?" Victoria looked embarrassed. "Ruby thinks everything I paint has an emotion attached to it. She is not entirely wrong. I work mostly in abstract expressionism, trying to capture moments that cannot quite be put into words." "How did the meeting go?" The question hung there, and Nathan immediately knew the answer from the way Victoria's shoulders tensed slightly. He said my work was too emotional for his current collection, too raw. He suggested I try something more commercial, more appealing to buyers who want art that matches their furniture. The bitterness in her voice was barely concealed, and Nathan recognized the particular pain of having your passion reduced to a commodity. "That sounds like someone who has forgotten what art is supposed to do," he said carefully. Victoria looked up at him, surprised. "Most people tell me I should take the advice, that I need to be more practical if I want to succeed. Success is not worth much if you have to become someone else to achieve it." The words came out more intense than Nathan had intended, carrying the weight of his own compromises, his own losses. Victoria studied his face, and he felt suddenly exposed, as if this woman he barely knew could see straight through to all the things he kept hidden. "That sounds like something someone learns the hard way," she said softly. Before Nathan could respond, Ruby interrupted. "Can I show Nate your paintings, Mama? Please." "Ruby, I am sure Nate does not want to look at random artwork while he is trying to eat dinner." "Actually, I would love to see them," Nathan said, and he meant it. The gallery of hidden dreams. Victoria hesitated, then slowly pulled the portfolio onto her lap. She unzipped it carefully, revealing a stack of canvases wrapped in protective cloth. Ruby bounced excitedly as her mother unwrapped the first piece and turned it toward Nathan. The painting took his breath away. It was an explosion of deep blues and purples, with streaks of gold cutting through like lightning. The colors seemed to move even though they were still, creating a sense of motion and emotion that hit him directly in the chest. It was not pretty, in a conventional sense. It was raw and honest and powerful. "This is grief," Victoria said quietly. "I painted it after my father passed away 2 years ago. Ruby was right when she said I paint feelings. This was the only way I could process what losing him felt like." Nathan stared at the canvas, seeing in it all the things he had felt but never expressed. The isolation, the anger at the unfairness, the deep, hollow ache that time never quite healed. "It is extraordinary," he said, and he heard the roughness in his own voice. Victoria showed him 3 more pieces. One was brighter, full of yellows and oranges, which she explained represented the morning Ruby was born. Another was a chaotic mix of reds and blacks that she called the year everything fell apart. The last one was gentler, soft greens and blues with small touches of pink, titled Rebuilding. "You are not just painting feelings," Nathan said slowly. "You are painting survival." Victoria's eyes widened slightly. "Yes, that is exactly what I am doing." "Then that gallery owner is a fool. These should be in museums, not hidden away because they make people uncomfortable." "Art is supposed to make people uncomfortable," Victoria said, passion creeping into her voice, It is supposed to make you feel something real, not just look pretty on a wall. Mama gets upset when people do not understand her paintings, Ruby said matter-of-factly. But I tell her that means they are extra special. Only smart people get it. Nathan laughed, but his attention stayed on Victoria. There was something magnetic about her when she talked about her work, the way her entire demeanor changed from cautious to alive. "How do you survive?" he asked. "If the galleries will not show your work." Victoria's expression shuddered slightly, the vulnerability retreating. "I work here 4 nights a week as a server. During the day, Ruby is in school, and I take whatever freelance design jobs I can find online. It is not glamorous, but it keeps us fed and housed." The matter-of-fact way she said it, without self-pity or complaint, made Nathan respect her even more. She was not waiting for someone to rescue her. She was building her life piece by piece, refusing to compromise her art even when it would have been easier to do so. "And you still find time to paint," he observed. "I paint because I have to. It is not a choice anymore. It is how I breathe." Nathan understood that completely. He had felt that way about technology once, before it became about market shares and quarterly reports instead of innovation and possibility. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily between serious and light. Ruby eventually fell asleep with her head on the table, syrup still sticky on her cheek. Victoria gently cleaned her daughter's face with a napkin, her movements tender and practiced. "I should get her home," Victoria said reluctantly. "School, night." Nathan did not want them to leave. The restaurant had slowly emptied around them, and he realized they had been the last customers for at least 20 minutes. The owner was wiping down tables, giving them space but clearly ready to close. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said as Victoria gathered their things. "Of course." "Would you consider selling one of your paintings?" "To me?" Victoria froze. "You do not have to do that." "I am not asking because I feel sorry for you. I am asking because I want to own something real. Something that means something. I have spent too much money on art that looks impressive, but feels empty. Your work feels like truth." She studied his face, searching for dishonesty and seemingly finding none. "Which one?" "The grief piece, if you are willing to part with it." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "That one is personal." "I know. That is why I want it. I will pay whatever you think is fair." $500, she said finally. "That is what galleries usually price my work at when they do show it." Nathan almost laughed. The painting was worth at least $50,000 to the right collector, but he simply nodded. $500 it is. Can I pick it up next week?" "You are serious about this." "Completely." Victoria wrapped the painting back up carefully, then wrote her phone number on a napkin. "Text me when you want to pick it up. We live about 10 blocks from here." Nathan took the napkin, folding it carefully and putting it in his wallet. As Victoria lifted Ruby into her arms, the little girl stirred slightly, mumbling something about pancakes before settling back to sleep against her mother's shoulder. "Thank you," Victoria said softly. "For dinner, for looking at my work, for understanding." "Thank you for letting me," Nathan replied. He watched them leave, Victoria carrying her sleeping daughter and her portfolio, moving through the night with quiet strength. The owner locked the door behind them and turned to Nathan with a knowing smile. "She is special, that one," the old woman said. "Takes care of everyone but herself." Nathan nodded, pulling out his wallet to pay. He left a generous tip, then walked out into the cool night air. As he made his way back toward his penthouse, he felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. Or perhaps just the simple recognition that somewhere in this vast city, there was someone who understood what it meant to be seen for who you really were, not who you were supposed to be. And for the first time in years, Nathan Pierce felt like maybe he could become someone worth knowing again. Nathan stood in his penthouse office, the grief painting now hanging on the wall behind his desk. It had been there for 2 weeks, and he found himself turning to look at it dozens of times each day. The swirls of blue and purple seemed different, depending on his mood, sometimes offering comfort, sometimes reflecting back his own emptiness. His assistant, Jennifer, had commented on it during their morning briefing. "That is quite a departure from your usual taste, Mr. Pierce. Very emotional." He had simply nodded, offering no explanation. How could he explain that this painting felt more honest than anything else in his carefully curated life? His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Victoria. Ruby wanted to know if he would come to her school art show next Friday. The message was casual, friendly, as if they had known each other for years instead of weeks. Nathan typed back immediately, "I would be honored." The truth was, he had seen Victoria and Ruby 4 more times since that second dinner. Each meeting had been unplanned, or at least appeared that way. He would find himself at Rosewood Bistro on nights when Victoria was working. She would bring Ruby along, and the 3 of them would share a table during her breaks. They talked about everything and nothing. Books, dreams, the small frustrations of daily life. Never once had Victoria asked what he did for work. She seemed content with the vague answer he had given early on, something about consulting and technology. Ruby, blessedly, was more interested in teaching him how to draw unicorns than inquiring about his career. But the deception was beginning to weigh on him. Each time Victoria mentioned struggling to pay for Ruby's school supplies or worried aloud about making rent, Nathan felt the lie grow heavier. He could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But he knew that the moment she learned who he really was, everything would change. People always changed when they found out. The school hallway, Friday arrived wrapped in autumn sunshine. Nathan had cleared his entire afternoon schedule, ignoring Jennifer's raised eyebrows when he refused to explain where he was going. He dressed carefully in jeans and a simple sweater, trying to look like someone who belonged at an elementary school art show rather than a boardroom. Cedar Elementary was a cheerful building painted bright yellow, with student artwork covering every available wall. Nathan followed the signs to the gymnasium, where rows of tables displayed various projects. Parents and grandparents crowded the space, cameras ready, proud smiles abundant. He spotted Ruby immediately. She wore a purple dress with white tights and sparkly shoes, her hair in 2 neat braids tied with matching ribbons. When she saw him, her entire face lit up. "Nate, you came!" She ran to him, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward her display. "Come see! I made something special!" Victoria stood near Ruby's table, looking beautiful in a simple blue dress that brought out the warmth in her dark eyes. When she saw Nathan, her smile was genuine and unguarded. He felt something tighten in his chest. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Ruby has been talking about it all week." I would not have missed it. Ruby's project was a painting titled My Family and Friends. It showed 3 stick figures standing in front of what appeared to be the bistro, 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small. Above them, she had painted a bright sun and the words, "People who make me happy." Nathan stared at the painting, emotion catching in his throat. He was included in her definition of family. This little girl, who had known him for less than a month, had made space for him in her world without hesitation or condition. "Do you like it?" Ruby asked anxiously. "It is perfect," Nathan managed. "The best thing I have seen all year." Ruby beamed and went running off to show other visitors her work. Nathan and Victoria stood side by side, watching her bounce from person to person with infectious enthusiasm. "She really does care about you," Victoria said softly. "I hope that is okay. I know we have not known you very long, but Ruby has good instincts about people. She always has." "It is more than okay," Nathan replied. "She has changed my life in ways I am still trying to understand." Victoria looked up at him, something searching in her gaze. "You never talk about your life, Nate, your family, your past. Sometimes I wonder if you are running from something." The observation was too accurate. Nathan felt exposed under her gentle scrutiny. "Maybe I am," he admitted. "Or maybe I am just trying to find something I lost a long time ago." "What did you lose?" "The ability to trust that people see me. Just me. Not what I can do for them or what they can gain from knowing me." Victoria nodded slowly. "I understand that more than you might think. After Ruby's father left, everyone had advice, opinions, judgments. Nobody just saw me as Victoria anymore. I was the single mom, the abandoned woman, the cautionary tale. It took me a long time to remember who I was underneath all those labels. The moment everything shifted. They were interrupted by Ruby returning with another student in tow, a boy who apparently wanted to show Nathan his dinosaur sculpture. The afternoon passed in a pleasant blur of children's laughter and proud parents. Nathan found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did at corporate events or charity galas. Here, nobody cared about his net worth or his connections. He was just Nate, the man who made Ruby smile. As the event wound down and families began to leave, Victoria helped Ruby carefully pack up her artwork. Nathan carried the larger pieces to Victoria's car, an old sedan with a dented bumper and a passenger door. That stuck. "Can Nate come to dinner at our house?" Ruby asked as Victoria buckled her into the car seat. "Please, Mama, I want to show him my room." Victoria hesitated, glancing at Nathan. "I am sure Nate has other plans for tonight." "Actually, I do not," Nathan said. "But I do not want to impose." "You never impose," Victoria said, and there was something in her voice that made his heart beat faster. "If you really want to come, we would love to have you. Fair warning, though, dinner will be spaghetti and the apartment is small." "That sounds perfect." They drove through the city as dusk settled, Ruby chattering from the back seat about her friends and her favorite teacher. Victoria's apartment was in an older building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The lobby smelled faintly of cleaning products and someone's cooking. They climbed 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again. Victoria explained apologetically. The apartment itself was tiny but filled with warmth. Artwork covered the walls, a mix of Victoria's paintings and Ruby's creations. Mismatched furniture created cozy spaces. Books overflowed from shelves, plants lined the windowsills, reaching toward whatever sunlight they could find. "Welcome to our home," Victoria said, setting down her bags. "It is not much, but it is ours." Nathan looked around, seeing more life and love in this small space than existed in his entire penthouse. "It is wonderful." While Victoria cooked, Ruby gave Nathan the grand tour, which took approximately 2 minutes given the size of the apartment. Her room was an explosion of color, with drawings taped to every surface and stuffed animals crowding her bed. She showed him each one, explaining their names and personalities with great seriousness. In the kitchen, Nathan found Victoria stirring sauce at the stove. She had changed into comfortable clothes, leggings, and an oversized shirt splattered with old paint stains. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she hummed softly to herself as she cooked. "Can I help?" Nathan asked. "You can set the table if you want. Plates are in that cabinet." They worked together in comfortable silence, moving around the small kitchen with an ease that felt natural. Nathan set 3 mismatched plates on the small dining table, while Victoria added garlic bread to a tray. "This is nice," he said quietly. "Being here. Feeling normal." Victoria paused, looking at him with those perceptive eyes. "You say things like that sometimes. Like normal is something you have to work to feel. It makes me wonder what your life is really like." Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it. The words stuck in his throat. How could he explain without shattering this fragile thing they had built? Dinner was loud and messy and perfect. Ruby told elaborate stories between bites of spaghetti, getting sauce on her face and not caring. Victoria laughed freely, the stress that usually tightened her shoulders completely absent. Nathan felt himself relaxing into the moment, forgetting for just a little while about the massive deception hanging over his head. After dinner, while Ruby was in her room playing, Nathan helped Victoria wash dishes. She washed, he dried, and they worked in synchronized rhythm. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said suddenly, setting down the plate he was drying. Victoria looked at him concerned. "That sounds serious." "It is. I have not been completely honest with you about who I am." Her expression shifted, becoming guarded. "Okay." Nathan took a breath. "My name is not really Nate Rivers. It is Nathan Pierce. I am the CEO of Tech Vision Industries." Victoria stood very still, water dripping from her hands back into the sink. "The Nathan Pierce? The billionaire?" "Yes." She turned off the water slowly, reaching for a towel to dry her hands. Her movements were careful, controlled. "Why did you lie?" "Because I wanted someone to see me. Just me. Not my money or my company or what I could offer them. I was so tired of people wanting something from me that I created a different identity just to feel human again." "So you lied to us," Victoria said, her voice flat. "You let me complain about money problems while you could buy this entire building, without noticing. You watched me struggle and said nothing. I wanted to help. Every single time. But I knew if I did, everything would change. You would change. You do not get to decide that." Victoria's voice rose slightly, anger breaking through. "You do not get to lie to me and then blame it on protecting what we had. We did not have anything real because it was built on deception." Nathan felt panic rising in his chest. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you thought I was too shallow to care about you if you were not rich? Or that you were testing me somehow to see if I was worthy of the truth?" "No, it was not like that. I was protecting myself, not judging you." "By lying to me every single day for weeks?" Victoria's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Do you know how many times I almost told you that I was struggling? That I was scared? About making rent or affording Ruby's school supplies? And you just sat there, hiding behind your fake name and your fake life, letting me believe we were equals sharing honest moments." From the hallway, they heard Ruby's small voice. "Mama, why are you yelling?" Victoria took a shaky breath, composing herself. "Nothing, honey. Everything is fine. Stay in your room for a minute, okay?" She turned back to Nathan, her voice lower but no less intense. "You need to leave." "Victoria, please." "No. You do not get to do this. You do not get to come into our lives, make us care about you, and then reveal it was all based on lies. Ruby thinks you are her friend. She made you part of her family in that painting. And now what? You are some billionaire who was playing pretend with the poor people? That is not fair. My feelings were real. Everything I felt was real. But the person I thought I was feeling things for does not exist." Victoria's voice cracked. Nate Rivers was someone I could trust, someone who understood struggle because he lived it too. Nathan Pierce is a stranger who lied to my face every single day. Nathan felt everything falling apart. "I am still the same person." "No, you are not. The person I knew would not have let me worry about paying for Ruby's art supplies while sitting on billions of dollars. The person I knew would not have built our entire friendship on deception. I was going to tell you, tonight. That is why I came to dinner. I could not keep lying anymore." "Well, congratulations. You told me. And now you can leave." The empty spaces. We Create Nathan stood in Victoria's tiny kitchen, watching her turn, away from him, her shoulders shaking with suppressed emotion. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to explain, to make her understand. But he had done this. He had built this wall between them brick by careful brick. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "For what it is worth, I am truly sorry. You are right about everything. I should have told you from the beginning. I should have trusted you." Victoria did not turn around. "Please, just go." Nathan walked slowly toward the door, each step feeling like a betrayal. As he reached for the handle, Ruby appeared in the hallway, her stuffed bear clutched to her chest. "Are you leaving?" she asked, her voice small. Nathan knelt down to her level, his heart breaking. "I have to go, Ruby." "But you will come back, right? For pancakes?" He glanced at Victoria, who still had her back turned. "I do not know, sweetheart." Ruby's lower lip trembled. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Nathan said quickly. "You did everything right. You are perfect. I am the one who made mistakes." "Then fix them," Ruby said simply. "That is what you do when you make mistakes. You fix them." If only it were that simple. Nathan pulled the little girl into a gentle hug, memorizing the feel of her small arms around his neck, the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "I will try," he whispered. "I promise I will try." He left the apartment, closing the door softly behind him. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Through the thin door, he could hear Ruby asking why Nate had to leave, and Victoria's gentle response that sometimes grown-ups made things complicated. Nathan took the stairs down slowly, each step taking him further from the only place that had felt like home in years. Outside, the city night wrapped around him, cold and indifferent. His phone buzzed with messages from Jennifer about tomorrow's meetings, from his lawyer about a contract, from his publicist about a media appearance. The weight of Nathan Pierce settled back onto his shoulders, heavy and suffocating. He pulled out his phone and looked at Victoria's number, the one she had given him that first night. His thumb hovered over the screen, wanting to call, to text, to bridge the gap his lies had created. But what could he say that would matter? What words could rebuild trust once it had been shattered? Choosing what matters. 3 weeks passed. Nathan threw himself into work with an intensity that worried even his most demanding board members. He closed 2 major deals, launched a new product line, and gave interviews to every major publication that requested one. He was everywhere and nowhere, constantly moving so he would not have to sit still with his regrets. The grief painting hung behind his desk, a constant reminder of what he had lost. Sometimes late at night, alone in his office, he would stare at it and wonder if Victoria had painted it, knowing that grief came in layers, that you could lose something and keep losing it over and over with each passing day. He had driven past Rosewood Bistro twice, but could not make himself go inside. What if Victoria was working? What if she saw him and that guarded expression replaced the warmth he remembered? What if Ruby was there, looking at him with confusion and hurt? It was easier to stay away. Safer, but easier and safer were not the same as right. On a Friday evening, Nathan found himself standing outside Cedar Elementary again. Another art show, according to the sign outside. He had no invitation this time. No reason to be there except the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he could see them one more time. He almost turned back a dozen times. But something kept pulling him forward, through the doors, down the hallway, into the gymnasium. The room was crowded with families again. Nathan scanned the space, looking for a small girl in a purple dress or a woman with paint-stained fingers. His heart pounded as he searched. Then he saw her. Victoria stood near a display table helping Ruby adjust one of her paintings. She wore a simple green dress, and her hair fell loose around her shoulders. She looked tired but beautiful, and Nathan felt his chest constrict with how much he had missed her. As if sensing his presence, Victoria looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Nathan saw surprise flash across her face, followed by something more complicated. Not anger exactly, but not welcome either. Ruby spotted him next. She grabbed her mother's hand and pointed, saying something Nathan could not hear over the crowd. Victoria bent down, listening to her daughter, then straightened slowly. Nathan did not move, giving them the choice. He would leave if they wanted. He would stay on the periphery if that was all they could offer. He just needed to see that they were okay, that his mistakes had not permanently damaged the brightest thing in his life. Ruby made the decision. She let go of her mother's hand and walked toward him, not running this time, but deliberate and careful. When she reached him, she looked up with those wise brown eyes. "You came back," she said. "I did. I am sorry it took so long." Mama says sorry does not mean much without action. What is your action? Nathan felt a smile tug at his lips despite everything. You are too smart for 6 years old. I am almost 7 now. That is practically grown up. He knelt down to her level. You are right. Sorry is not enough by itself. So here is my action. I will be honest from now on. Always. No more pretending. And I will respect whatever your mama decides, even if it means I cannot be part of your lives anymore. Because I care about both of you too much to hurt you again. Ruby considered this seriously. Then she turned and called out, "Mama, Nate says he will be honest now. Is that a good enough action?" Every parent in the vicinity turned to look. Victoria's cheeks flushed as she walked over, clearly mortified by the public nature of the conversation. "Ruby, this is not something we discuss in front of everyone," she said gently. "But you said if someone makes a real promise and backs it up with action, that is how you know they mean it. Nate just made a real promise." Victoria looked at Nathan, really looked at him, and he let her see everything. The regret, the loneliness, the desperate hope that maybe it was not too late. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Please. Just 5 minutes." Victoria glanced around at the crowded gymnasium, then back at Ruby. "Will you be okay here for a few minutes? Stay where I can see you." "I will guard my paintings with my life," Ruby declared dramatically. They walked to a quiet corner near the windows, far enough from the crowd for privacy, but close enough that Victoria could keep an eye on her daughter. "I do not have any excuses," Nathan began. "I lied because I was a coward. I was so used to people wanting things from me that I forgot how to let anyone get close. When I met you and Ruby, I wanted so badly for it to be real that I convinced myself the lies did not matter as long as the feelings were genuine." "But they do matter," Victoria said softly. "Trust matters. Honesty matters. How can I believe anything you say now?" "You cannot. Not yet. I have to earn that back, and I know it might take a long time, or it might never happen at all, but I am asking for the chance to try." Victoria was quiet, her arms wrapped around herself. "Do you know what the hardest part is? I was falling for you. Not Nathan Pierce, the billionaire. Not Nate Rivers, the mysterious consultant. Just you. The person who looked at my paintings and saw truth. Who listened to Ruby's stories like they mattered. Who made me feel less alone. And then I found out that person was built on lies." He was not built on lies. The name was different and I hid my circumstances, but everything else was real. Every conversation, every moment, every feeling. I was more myself with you than I have been in 10 years. Then why not trust me with all of it? Nathan felt the familiar shame rise up. "Because I am damaged. Because I have been used and manipulated so many times that I forgot what genuine connection looked like. When I found it with you, I was terrified of losing it, so I protected it the only way I knew how. Badly." Victoria let out a long breath, and some of the tension left her shoulders. "I understand being afraid. I really do. After Ruby's father left, I built walls so high that nobody could hurt me again. It took Ruby's innocent faith in people to teach me that walls keep out pain, but they also keep out joy. Maybe you needed to learn the same lesson. I am learning it now. Painfully." A small smile touched her lips. "Growth usually is painful. They stood in silence for a moment, watching Ruby show her artwork to another family. The little girl caught them looking and waved enthusiastically. "She missed you," Victoria said quietly. "She asked about you every day for 2 weeks. Finally, I had to explain that sometimes people leave even when we do not want them to. I hated saying those words to her. I hated that you made me say them." Nathan felt the words like a punch to his chest. "I am sorry. I am so incredibly sorry." "I know you are. I can see it. But Nathan, whoever you are, I have a daughter to protect. I cannot let someone into our lives who might disappear again the moment things get difficult. Ruby deserves stability. She deserves people who show up and stay. I want to be that person. For both of you. Wanting is not the same as doing. Then, let me do it. Let me prove it. I am not asking to pick up where we left off. I am asking for the chance to start over, the right way this time. Full honesty, no games, no hiding." Victoria studied his face and Nathan held his breath. "Full honesty," she repeated. "That means everything. Your life, your world, all the complications that come with who you really are." "Everything," Nathan promised. "And you have to tell Ruby the truth. About your name, about everything. She deserves honesty too." "Of course." Victoria took a deep breath. "Okay, we can try. Slowly. Carefully. But Nathan, if you hurt her again, if you hurt either of us, there will not be another chance. Do you understand?" "I understand. And I will not waste this opportunity. I promise you." Ruby came running over before either of them could say more. "Did you fix it?" she asked breathlessly. "Did you use your action words?" Victoria smiled down at her daughter. "He is trying to. We will see if his actions match his words." "They will," Ruby said confidently. "I know they will." "Can Nate come to pancakes tomorrow?" Victoria looked at Nathan, and he saw the caution in her eyes mixed with something that might have been hope. "Tomorrow might be too soon," she said gently. "But maybe next week, if that works for you?" "Next week would be perfect," Nathan said. "And Ruby, I need to tell you something. My real name is not Nate Rivers. It is Nathan Pierce. I am sorry I was not honest about that from the beginning." Ruby frowned, considering this information. "Is Nathan a good name?" "I think so." "Okay. Can I still call you Nate, though?" "I like Nate better." Nathan laughed, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. "You can call me whatever you want. Then you are still Nate. Just Nate who tells the truth now." That sounds exactly right. As they said their goodbyes and Nathan left the school, he felt something shift inside him. The fear that had governed so much of his life was still there, but it no longer controlled him. He had been honest, had made himself vulnerable, and the world had not ended. Victoria had not immediately forgiven him, but she had given him a chance. Sometimes that was all anyone could ask for. A chance to do better, to be better, to build something real on a foundation of truth instead of carefully constructed lies. Nathan pulled out his phone and sent a text to his assistant. "Clear my calendar for next Saturday morning. Personal commitment. Non-negotiable." For the first time in his life, Nathan Pierce was choosing something more important than a board meeting or a business deal. He was choosing the possibility of love, messy and complicated and terrifyingly real. He was choosing truth. And as he walked through the autumn evening, past the ordinary people living their extraordinary lives, Nathan finally understood what his grief painting had been trying to teach him all along. That loss was inevitable. But so was the possibility of finding something new. That walls protected you from pain, but they also imprisoned you from joy. That the only way to truly live was to risk being seen, completely and honestly, and to trust that the right people would stay. Victoria and Ruby had seen him at his most flawed, most broken, most human, and they had not turned away forever. They had given him the most precious gift anyone could offer. They had given him a second chance. Rosewood Bistro had not changed. The same checkered tablecloths covered the same wooden tables. The same neon sign flickered in the window. But everything else was different. Nathan sat in his usual booth, watching Victoria serve tables with practiced grace. She had quit her night shifts months ago after Nathan had purchased 3 of her paintings for what they were actually worth, giving her the financial cushion to focus on her art during the evenings. Her first gallery show was scheduled for next month, and advance interest had been overwhelming. Ruby sat across from him, doing homework with intense concentration. She had recently declared that she wanted to be an artist like her mama and a businessman like Nate, which she had decided meant she would sell paintings on the internet when she grew up. Nathan had no doubt she would accomplish exactly that. "Done!" Ruby announced, closing her workbook with satisfaction. "Can we get pancakes now?" "After your mama finishes her shift," Nathan reminded her. Victoria appeared at their table, sliding into the booth beside her daughter. Her shift had just ended and she looked tired but happy. "How was your day?" Nathan asked. "Good. Busy. I finished the commission piece for that collector in Boston. I think it might be my best work yet." "Can I see it?" "Tonight, if you come over for dinner." It was not really a question anymore. Nathan had dinner with them at least 4 nights a week now. He had learned Ruby's bedtime routine, which book she liked read in which order. He had learned that Victoria took her coffee with just a touch of cream and preferred silence in the mornings until she had fully woken up. He had learned how to be part of a family, something he had never truly understood before. "I would love to," he said. Ruby grinned. "Are you going to do the voices again when you read my story tonight?" "Would you want me to?" "Obviously. You do. The best monster voice." The owner brought over 3 plates of pancakes without being asked, winking at Nathan as she set them down. She had figured out who he really was months ago after seeing his picture in a business magazine, but she had never treated him differently. That was one of the things he loved about this place. As they ate, Victoria reached under the table and squeezed his hand. It was a small gesture, casual and comfortable, the kind of touch that came from genuine intimacy rather than performance. Nathan squeezed back, feeling gratitude wash over him. He had almost lost this. His fear and dishonesty had nearly destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to him. But he had been given a second chance, and he had not wasted it. Every day he chose honesty. Every day he chose presence. Every day he chose to be the person that Victoria and Ruby deserved. It was not always easy. Merging his complicated life with theirs had required compromises on all sides. The media had been invasive when news of their relationship broke. Board members had questioned his judgment. Old friends had emerged from nowhere, suddenly interested in reconnecting. But through it all, Victoria had remained steady. She had set boundaries with his world, refusing to be consumed by it. She had continued painting, continued being herself, and she had taught Nathan how to do the same. How to be Nathan Pierce, the CEO, when necessary, but more importantly, how to be just Nathan, just himself, just a man who had found love in the most unexpected place. "What are you thinking about?" Victoria asked softly. "How lucky I am," Nathan replied. "How different my life could have been if I had walked out of this diner that first night instead of staying." But you did not walk out. Even when you thought your date had stood you up, you stayed. Maybe some part of you knew something important was about to happen. Or maybe a wise little girl in a yellow raincoat saved me from my own loneliness. Ruby looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin. "I did save you. I told Mama you looked sad and I was right." "You were absolutely right," Nathan agreed. As they finished eating and prepared to leave, Nathan looked around the small restaurant. One more time. This place would always be special to him. It was where he had learned that being seen was not something to fear, but something to cherish. That vulnerability was not weakness, but strength. That the most valuable things in life could not be bought, only earned through honesty, patience, and love. Outside, the evening air was cool and fresh. Ruby held both their hands as they walked toward Victoria's apartment, swinging between them and singing a song she had learned at school. Nathan looked at Victoria over Ruby's head, and she smiled at him. Not the cautious, guarded smile from 6 months ago, but something open and warm and full of promise. "I love you," he said, not for the first time, but still with the same wonder as the first time he had spoken those words. "I love you too," Victoria replied. "All of you, the complicated billionaire and the simple man who likes pancakes. Every part." "Every part," Nathan repeated, finally understanding what those words truly meant. They walked home together as the city lights began to glow. 3 people who had found each other against impossible odds. A lonely billionaire, a struggling artist, and a fearless little girl who had taught them both that the bravest thing anyone can do is choose to be seen. And, in choosing to be seen, Nathan Pierce had finally learned how to truly live. The end.